In 1995, two prominent evangelical writers, Tim LaHaye and Jerry B. Jenkins, introduced the world to their novel Left Behind, a story set during the end times of humanity. The book immerses readers in an apocalyptic atmosphere, vividly depicting the trials and tribulations faced by those left behind after the rapture, a mysterious event in which hundreds of millions of Christians vanish without a trace. The novel not only became a bestseller, but also launched a vast multimedia franchise, including 15 sequels and 4 film adaptations, one of which starred the famous actor Nicolas Cage. Like any work of art, the Left Behind series is deeply rooted in its historical and cultural context, specifically a particular strand of evangelical eschatology known as dispensationalism. This theological framework gained widespread popularity in the 19th century through the preaching of John Nelson Darby, who vigorously promoted the doctrine of the pre-tribulation rapture. According to this view, God will remove true believers from the earth before a 7-year period of great tribulation, thereby sparing them from divine judgment preceding Christ's triumphant second coming. Throughout the 20th century, this concept became immensely influential among American evangelicals, partly due to the Scofield Reference Bible, a study Bible whose notes actively advanced dispensationalist theology. At the heart of these eschatological speculations stands a satanic supervillain known as the Antichrist. For those unfamiliar with the Left Behind series, it is worth noting that the role of the Antichrist is assigned to Nicolae Carpathia, a Romanian politician who rises to global prominence. Using the United Nations as his primary instrument, Carpathia ascends to the position of UN Secretary General and gradually consolidates absolute power, eventually declaring himself supreme ruler of the world. Although Carpathia is a fictional creation, his portrayal as an authoritarian tyrant aligns closely with long-standing Christian conceptions, both past and present, of the Antichrist. In contemporary understanding, the Antichrist is often envisioned as a singular, typically political figure who will oppose or attempt to replace Jesus Christ immediately before his second coming. Accusing political or religious leaders whose views differ from one's own of being the Antichrist has long been a common polemical tactic throughout Christian history. But where does this concept originate? If the intellectual and historical backdrop of the Left Behind series lies in 19th and 20th century Protestant dispensationalism, what was the original context of the Antichrist in Christian scripture? The Greek term from which Antichrist derives is antichristos, composed of 2 parts: anti, which can mean opposed to, in place of, or instead of, and Christos, meaning anointed one, or Messiah. Thus, etymologically, Antichrist points to 2 interrelated conceptions, one who opposes Christ and one who impersonates or replaces him. The term itself appears only a handful of times in the New Testament and does not match the modern image of a satanic supervillain. It occurs just 5 times, exclusively in 2 closely related texts, the first and second epistles of John. 4 of these 5 references are in 1 John, making it the logical starting point. 1 John is a letter written by an anonymous author who claims to represent eyewitnesses of Jesus. Employing language reminiscent of the Gospel of John, the author is deeply concerned with distinguishing insiders from outsiders, drawing clear boundaries between those who obey Jesus and his commandments and those who do not. The first 2 mentions of the Antichrist appear together as a sign of the approaching end. Children, it is the last hour. As you have heard that Antichrist is coming, so now many antichrists have come. From this we know that it is the last hour. 1 John 2:18. The use of the singular Antichrist here may seem confusing, but notably, the original Greek lacks the definite article. This nuance is reflected in translations like the NRSV, which renders the term with a lowercase a, Antichrist, rather than the capitalized definite, the Antichrist. Scholars are skeptical that the author envisions a single mythological figure. Rather, he appears to refer to a category or type of person, those who oppose Jesus. This becomes clear when he immediately adds, "Many antichrists have come," using the plural. For the author of 1 John, the danger lies precisely in their multitude. More importantly, he specifies who qualifies as an antichrist. Who is the liar but the one who denies that Jesus is the Christ? This is the Antichrist, the one who denies the Father and the Son. 1 John chapter 2:22. Thus, anyone who denies Jesus as the Messiah is labeled an Antichrist. Later in the same letter, the author links the spirit of Antichrist to false prophets in the world, urging believers to test carefully whom they listen to and from whom they learn. Yet, this is not merely an abstract category. The author seems to have in mind specific individuals who had once belonged to his community but later departed. "They went out from us, but they did not belong to us," he writes, implying that these former members now deny Jesus' messiahship. The author of 2 John similarly uses Antichrist to describe a class of people. Many deceivers have gone out into the world, those who do not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. Any such person is the deceiver and the Antichrist. 2 John chapter 1, verse 7. Although the singular form is used, it functions generically, applying to all who deny the incarnation of Christ. While it is possible these authors associated such individuals with a mythical end-time adversary, they do not elaborate on this idea. Despite some ambiguity, scholars agree that for both 1 and 2 John, Antichrist primarily functions as a synonym for heretic or apostate. As scholar Robert C. Fuller observes, "We should therefore be skeptical of the common assumption that the Johannine Antichrist is simply a variant of the long-standing, widely held expectation of an intensely evil opponent as found in Revelation." The Johannine Antichrist refers to human apostates, not a supernatural beast. This broad usage persisted into the 2nd century. Polycarp, Bishop of Smyrna in Asia Minor, quoted 1 John to argue against those who might deny the reality of Jesus, crucifixion, resurrection, or future judgment, labeling such individuals antichrists and children of the devil. Thus, even decades after 1 John began circulating among Christian communities, the concept of the Antichrist remained a powerful but general tool for drawing boundaries between insiders and outsiders. So when did the idea of a single supervillain emerge? During the 2nd and 3rd centuries, Christians began reinterpreting the concept of antichrists in new ways, synthesizing it with other biblical texts to construct a definitive end-time adversary who would oppose Christ at his return. They increasingly linked the Antichrist with two specific New Testament books, 2 Thessalonians and Revelation. In late 2nd century Gaul, Irenaeus, Bishop of Lyon, significantly expanded the figure's profile, bringing it closer to modern conceptions. In Book 5 of his Against Heresies, Irenaeus fused the Antichrist of 1 John with other scriptural passages to envision a false king, empowered by Satan, who would arise at the end of the age to deceive the masses. Irenaeus specifically connected the term Antichrist with the man of lawlessness, or son of perdition, described in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 through 3 and 4. "Let no one deceive you in any way, for that day will not come unless the rebellion comes first, and the lawless one is revealed, the one destined for destruction. He opposes and exalts himself above every so-called God or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, declaring himself to be God. This figure, according to 2 Thessalonians, performs satanic signs and wonders and is already at work in the world, though restrained until the time of Christ's return, when Jesus will destroy him. While scholars debate whether Paul actually wrote 2 Thessalonians, and the identity of the man of lawlessness remains uncertain, these ambiguities did not deter early Christian thinkers. Irenaeus was the first known Christian writer to explicitly identify the Johannine Antichrist with the man of lawlessness from 2 Thessalonians. He wrote, "For the Antichrist, endowed with all the power of the devil, will come not as a righteous king, nor as a legitimate king subject to God, but as an impious, unjust, and lawless one, as an apostate, concentrating in himself satanic apostasy and setting up idols so as to persuade people that he himself is God." Thus, Irenaeus envisioned the Antichrist as a satanic figure who would occupy a rebuilt Jerusalem temple and claim to be God incarnate, directly opposing Jesus. Irenaeus also integrated these texts with the prophecy of the Son of Man in the book of Daniel. There, Daniel sees 4 beasts, one of which has 10 horns, 9 ordinary, and 1 small, boastful horn. While Daniel likely referred to Seleucid rulers in his own Hellenistic context, Irenaeus interpreted the little horn as the son of perdition from 2 Thessalonians and the Antichrist from 1 John. He concluded that this composite figure would rule the earth for 3.5 years before being destroyed by Christ. As one of the Church Fathers, Irenaeus also drew heavily on the symbolic and prophetic book of Revelation. He asserted that John of Patmos, Revelation's author, encoded the Antichrist's name in the number 666, the mark of the beast. For John, this number likely pointed to the Roman Emperor Nero, symbolizing both past and future enemies of Christ and his followers. In antiquity, gematria, a system where letters correspond to numbers, allowed names to be represented numerically. For example, the Greek name Andreas sums to 361. Using this method, John may have encoded Nero Caesar as 666. Yet Irenaeus believed the number 666 was too complex to be tied to a single name. He proposed alternatives like Latanos and Tatan, but ultimately concluded that if God had wanted believers to know the Antichrist's identity, he would not have concealed it in a numerical riddle. Later Christian thinkers continued developing the Antichrist's image. Tertullian, a North African theologian, believed the Antichrist would appear at the fall of the Roman Empire and deny the bodily resurrection at the Last Judgment. He asked, "What obstacle is there but the Roman state, the falling away of which, when it is divided into 10 kingdoms, shall bring Antichrist to his own ruins?" Like Irenaeus, Tertullian equated the Antichrist with both the man of lawlessness and the 7-headed, 10-horned beast of Revelation, asserting that prophets foretold Rome's collapse, God's judgment, and the resurrection, but only after the Antichrist's destruction. Hippolytus of Rome, another influential churchman, wrote the first full treatise on the subject, On Christ and Antichrist. Likely composed in Rome, it speculated extensively on the Antichrist's appearance, name, origin, and how he might be resisted. Hippolytus portrayed Christ and the Antichrist as mirror images, both lion-like and lamb-like, both incarnate divine figures, both circumcised, and both capable of gathering followers. Citing Deuteronomy, Hippolytus was the first Christian writer to assign the Antichrist a specific birth narrative, placing him in the Israelite tribe of Dan and identifying him as a leader of the Edomites, ancient rivals of Israel, while Jesus descended from the tribe of Judah. Although both figures were framed as Jewish, the Antichrist's Jewish identity fueled centuries of anti-Semitic rhetoric, linking Judaism itself with the ultimate enemy of Christ. Thus, the shift from a general category to a singular supervillain occurred early in Christian history. By the late Roman Empire, the Antichrist was firmly constructed from multiple biblical sources, especially 2 Thessalonians, Daniel, and Revelation. In the Middle Ages, this figure evolved further, becoming the arch-enemy whom God's chosen people, or even angels, must confront at the end of time. One of the most influential medieval narratives is the Tiburtine Sibyl, an ancient text heavily revised by medieval Christians. Comparable to a medieval version of Left Behind, it features the Sibyl, a daughter of a Trojan king, who appears before the Roman Senate to deliver a vision. She prophesies the reign of a last emperor named Constans, who will destroy pagan temples, convert the masses to Christianity, and then confront the Antichrist. Following early Christian speculation, this Antichrist is a Jewish man from the tribe of Dan and the son of perdition from 2 Thessalonians. The Tiburtine Sibyl also pairs the Antichrist with another enemy, Gog and Magog, nations allied with Satan in Revelation, now reimagined as northern barbarians imprisoned by Alexander the Great until the end times. The last emperor defeats Gog and Magog, then journeys to Jerusalem to lay down his crown in anticipation of Christ's return. Medieval texts sometimes blurred the lines between the devil and the Antichrist. In one dialogue between Jesus and the devil, expanding on the temptation narrative, the devil declares himself the Antichrist when incarnated on earth. In this story, Jesus imprisons the devil in a pit, prophesying that he will one day return as a pickled fish sold in a meat market, be eaten by a woman named Perdition, Latin perditio, and be born from her. Here, the early Christian identification of the Antichrist with the son of perdition is taken literally. The Antichrist is born of a woman named Perdition. This bizarre medieval tale illustrates how the Antichrist's image evolved dramatically over Christian history. Originally, in the Johannine letters, Antichrist was a polemical term for a group of dissenting Christians who had left a community and denied Jesus' messiahship. But from the 2nd century onward, and especially throughout the Middle Ages, a clear trend emerged. First, Christian writers increasingly wove together disparate biblical passages to construct a detailed portrait of a singular end-time adversary, despite the term's sparse and ambiguous scriptural basis. Second, over centuries, they accumulated biographical details about the Antichrist, his ethnicity, possible names, behavior, powers, and even a life story involving a final battle with the last Roman emperor. Many Christians sought to understand this demonic figure who would mimic Christ and deceive countless souls. Early Christian writings provided elaborate and sometimes contradictory information about this ultimate opponent, a pursuit that many believers continue to take seriously today.